Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Pei Zayin in Nidara. Let's quickly review the Mishnah that we saw yesterday at the end of yesterday's daf and Pei Vav on the base. Mishnah said that if you're not aware of who made the neder, you have to break it again. For example, another issue was over another Bito. His wife made a neder and he thought his daughter made the neder. They told him his daughter made the neder, and he broke the neder thinking that it was his daughter's, and it turned out that it was his wife. He's got to break it again, or vice versa. Or we said, let's say his wife made herself a Nazirite. She said, I'm going to be a Nazira. And he thought, no, she made some neder prohibiting oranges as a carpenter. Also, that's a mistake. Not only is the subject, the person, if you got the person wrong, but if you got the neder wrong, that's also no good, and you got to break it again. None of a carbon subject verse is also true. Or let's say she made a neder from figs, not going to eat figs, and he thought it was grapes, and he broke it thinking it was grapes. Turns out it was, figs, or vice versa. In all these cases, he's got to break it again. It's no good. It says the Gemara, the Yoni. So when the pasuk says, when he hears about it, he has a choice that day to break the neder, right? It says in Yoni Osa, the pasuk says in Matos, says if he confirms it, that's hechrish law, or if he cancels it, then it's canceled. So Yonio says dafka her. He's got to know who it is. Hogabe Krom says the Gemara. The name of the Yonio says dafka. Dafka got to be her. Not only her, but you have to know what the neder is about. Hogabe Krom. When it comes to Ter and Kriya, a person has to rent his garment when a next of kin died. Remember, it says over there, al on each one. Where the Sivit says al Shaul al Yonasan Beno. When they were killed, David. So David, when they died, Shaul and Yonasan, David tore Kriya for each one individually. For Chamaratsan, a person lost two people at the same time, he has to get Ter Kriya on each one. That's the rule. It says al Shaul al Yonasan Beno Batanya. But we said even though you got to touch on each one individually, let's say the Bryce says Amrlo Mace of it. They told him his father died. The car and he tore Kriya. So then Rachmon turned out it wasn't his father, it was his son. He made a mistake. Yatsi de Kriya, he doesn't have to tear again. So why is it over here, if you broke the neder of the wrong person, that doesn't count. You got to start all over again. And the Ran says it's not just breaking it or confirming it. Whatever you did, if you confirmed it, you were makayim it, or you broke it, it doesn't mean anything unless you get the right person. And here by Ter and Kriya, we said if you made a mistake on the wrong person, you're still Yotzei. So you see that it doesn't have, even though it says I'll show Yonas Beno, it says on each one individually, just like over here it says Yoni Yosa on her. Yet over here we say if you did the wrong person, it doesn't count. But over there by Kriya it does count. Says the Gemara, Amri Lokash is not a kasha. Stam Hamafarish. It depends. Was it Stam? He tore Kriya Stam. He said somebody died, and he tore Kriya for that person. Turns out he thought it was the father. Turned out it was the son. Thought it was the son. Turned out it was the father. But they didn't tell him it was this particular person. Then it's okay because he tore Kriya Stam. Oh, but if he was Mafarish and they said for the son and not for the father, the father died. And then it turned out it was the son. Then he would have to Kriya again, just like over here when they told him it was his wife and it turned out it was his daughter, vice versa. You'd have to do it again. B'hatanya, this time it's not a kasha, it's a proof. B'hatanya, Amrlo Meis Aviv. You see where they told him specifically his father died, Vikar, and he tore Kriya. Then it turned out it was his son. Lo Yotzi de Kriya. He's not Yotzi, he's got to tear Kriya again. So you see from over here, these two places seem to contradict one another. The Bach points out that most of the Rishonim take out the next two lines. In other words, where that little aleph is, you take out the whole text two lines because the kasha is from the first price. In the second line on this page, the price has said if they told him his father died and he tore Kriya, then it turned out it was a son, he's Yotzei. On the other hand, this brisa says, this latter brisa, starting on the fifth line of the page, says if they told him it was his father and they tore Kriya, then it turned out his son, he doesn't have to tear Kriya. The answer is in the first case, they didn't tell him specifically, even though it says Amulo Meis Aviv in the first and the second line in this page. Tanya Amulo Meis Aviv is Lav Dafka, says the Ran. He just said they told him somebody died and he tore Kriya. It turned out he thought it was the father. It turned out it was the son. That's okay because they didn't say specifically father or son. But in the second brisa where they said your father died and he tore kriya, then it turned out it was a son. He's not Yosef because he tore for the wrong person. So the first answer is that we said here is that it's no kasha. Amri loka. They said in the yeshiva it's not a kasha, whether it's tam or it's mafarish. He takes out those two lines by the little bach aleph because the brisa itself, in other words, he's trying to answer so he's Yotze. We're really trying to answer. It's not that it hurts anything. It just doesn't add. We don't need it because we already have two brises which contradict one another. From this brisa, if you have that Gerson, then the brisa itself tells you that it's telling you if you said specifically the father and he tore for the father and turned the son, he's not Yotze. If they just say mace lo mace, and that's really they told him somebody died and he thought it was a father and it turned out it was a son, he is Yotze. So some have the Gerson, whether you have the Gerson or not, the idea is the same. However, the difficulty with this answer is that the first price that says Tanya Amrlo Meis Ava V'Kara V'Achkachnim Sebero Yotza, and you're saying that when they said Meis Ava it's Lav Daf, they just told them Meis Lo Meis. That's a little bit of a dochik answer. So Rav Ashi prefers a different answer. Rav Ashi Amar Kan V'Toch K'dei Dibur Kan Lach K'dei Dibur. Toch K'dei Dibur means you changed your mind, or you changed something within a couple of words. Shalom Alecha Rebbe. The time that it takes to say Shalom Alecha Rebbe, which is about 2 seconds, if you change your mind or something changed within that time, that's considered like the same time. In other words, it's considered simultaneous. So what happened here is this. Rav Ashi says, you don't have to come on and give an answer and say that, and he agrees that the Ran explains, Rav Ashi agrees with the first answer of the Gemara. Rashi lo asi with Polik says Ran on this that if they told him somebody died in your family and he tore kriya, and he thought it was probably his father, turned out it was his mother, turned out it was his brother or his son or somebody like that. So he's Yotze because they didn't really tell him specifically it was for that person. He just said he thought it was that person. Then it's okay. He doesn't have to do it again. Rav Ashi is also motive to that answer, but he says that's a bit of a dochik to say that answer in this case because the brisa on the second line of the page said Amrlo Meis Ava. They told him his father died and he tore kriya, and then it turned out it was a son. He was Yotze. That doesn't sound like stam. It doesn't sound like they did without mentioning. It sounds like they told him your father died. So Rashi says the answer to this brisa is in one case he found out that it was a son within a second, let's say a second or two of tearing kriya. They told him, in other words, they told him his father died. And he started to detour kriya, and within a second he found out that it was the son. Within 2 seconds, let's say he found the son, then it's okay, he's Yotze. But if it took a few minutes later, then he wouldn't be. Rav Ashi Amar Kan V'Toch K'dei Dibur Kan Lach K'dei Dibur. What was it talking about? How to come at yesterday kriya? He's Yotze Shem Sarav V'Toch Dibur. He found out it was son. Toch Dibur is not only when you change your words that are coming out of your mouth. When the whole incident was within a couple of seconds, then he's Yotze. Hadamar Lo Yotze De Kriya. When he said he's not Yotze Kriya, that's Lacha K'dei Dibur. And the same thing would be by Hafaras Adarim. We're saying the whole issue was the price of Arishit. He thought it was his wife who made the net. It turned out it was his daughter, and he broke the net. But within a second or two, he found out that it was indeed his wife. Right, his wife made the net. He thought it was his daughter, but within a second of breaking it or confirming it, within 2 seconds, he found out that it was who the correct person was, and it's also Yotze. So there's no difference here between the Dharam and between Kriya. And if it's within 2 seconds, you found out the correct person and you had intention for that, that's okay. If it was later on, not. The hot time, again, the Gemara says, here's a proof. It gives an example this way. Somebody had a sick relative in the house, and the person who was sick fainted. He thought the person died. He was sitting, had a vigil in the person's house. The man was sick. Somebody was sick in his house, let's say his brother, and he thought the guy died. And he tore kriya. Then afterwards he died. He hadn't died at that moment. The doctor was sitting there with the stethoscope, said he's not. Now he's dead. Within a second or two, it says, the Bryce says, you're not Yotze. You got to tear kriya. That's only if he died after, more than 2 seconds later. But if he died immediately within a couple of seconds, then the gear say is he doesn't have to tear again. The Hilchasa, the Gemara Paskins, Tok Kedibur Kedibur Dami. we always say that within 2 seconds, whether you're giving testimony, whether you're saying something, whether you did it within 2 seconds, you changed what you said within 2 seconds, or the circumstances changed, or you understood what took place within 2 seconds, or 2-3 seconds, whatever it is, the time it takes to say Shalom Aleichem Rebbe, that's okay. Except for 2 exceptions, or the Gemara here lists them as 4 exceptions. Chutz mi begadef, blaspheming God's name, chas v'chayil avodah zarah, umekadesh, marrying a woman, megarish, and divorcing. And the Ran points out that the Gemara elsewhere, the Mabasra lists these as 2 cases, right? He doesn't list it as 4. In Mabasra, the Gemara lists this as 2. It just says avodas kachavim. It says avodas kachavim and kedushin. Here he lists it as 4. Megadef, avodas kachavim, mekadesh, megarish, and he says, well, it's really no machlokas. Megadef is like avodas kachavim. We say avodas kachavim, we're including Megadef, and we say kedushin, we include gerushin also. So the Ran says, why are these exceptions? If you have a rule, if you change or something took place within 2 seconds, it's okay. So what difference does it make for kedushin, gerushin? So the Ran doesn't like the Pirush of the Ramban, who says it's a takaras chachamim. He doesn't like that at all, because why would they be oker the Torah? If min Torah, it's chal right away. Why would they be oker the Torah for other cases? We can't say when Nadarim or for anything else. So, and here we're saying that by Nadarim, the dibur is kedibur dami. If you found out, it wasn't the daughter, it was really the wife within 2 seconds of breaking the daughter's netter, that's okay, because he found it within 2 seconds. Same thing with Terran Kriya. You found out within 2 seconds it was for the wrong person, and you found out who the correct person was, that's okay. Why is Avodah Zarah and Kedusha and Gerushin different? So the Ran chooses to say that the reason is these are much more serious. When a person breaks a netter, or when a person tears Kriya, these are all mitzvahs and they're important, but you don't have to do it with the same focus and seriousness that, you're getting married or getting divorced. Those are really important issues. You're going to think about it very carefully. So we don't say that because it doesn't make sense. You did it with all seriousness. We don't give you the option of changing your mind. It's not something to be taken lightly. That's how the Ran learns. And the Ran says, why? It says the Ran about 5 lines into the white lines on this page. It's not a stringent. So it doesn't do with a full concentration, full focus. I say, okay, I'll do it within a couple of seconds, and not taking it that seriously, so you're not careful with your words. Since they're so stringent, he's totally concentrated on doesn't help. That's how the Ran sheet is. Says the next Mishnah. Let's say she said, again, the wife made a net that the husband wants to break. She says, these figs and grapes are forbidden to me like a carbon. Shani toemis, that I taste them, I'm not going to eat them at all. So here we get into the idea we mentioned before. Remember back on Samach Vav, Rabbi Akiva said that Achabav Akiva Amar Neder Shehuta Miksasa Huta Kulo. But that's what Rabbi Akiva taught us, that Neder Shehuta Miksasa Huta Kulo. Now you can understand by Hataras Nadarim it makes sense, because Hataras Nadarim, when you go to the rabbi, what does he do? He finds a way to excuse you from the entire neder, saying it was a mistake. Had you known this is I made a mistake. I didn't mean to do it. So the whole thing is annulled. From the beginning, the whole thing is annulled, and therefore, if it's partially annulled, the whole thing is annulled, because the whole thing was based on a mistake. What about by a farsadar? So over here, she made a neder forbidding herself from figs and grapes. He, the husband, confirmed partial. Kaim l'tainim, kula kaim. So the Mishnah tells us that when it comes to hakamas nadarim, confirming it of the husband or the father, hakama b'mixas is hakama gemura. Just like we said that hatara b'mixas, right? That neder shehuter mixasa huter kulo, huter kulo. Here we're also saying that neder shehukum mixasa hukum kulo, because he says if you were makayim even part of it, the whole thing is makuyim. We'll see different opinions in the Gemara, but here he says kayim latainim kula kayim. Hefel Tainim, but if you broke it for Tainim, he can, he canceled it for Tainim. Ain't a muffer, it's not broken out for Afla Novim until he's going to break it even for grapes. Now, there's two ways to understand this. The Kayim part we understand. If you confirm part of it, the whole thing is confirmed. But he says if it's Hufer Miksaso, it's not Hufer Kulo. Ain't a muffer for Afla Novim. So what does that mean? Does it mean that the Tainim, at least it's canceled for the Tainim, or it's not even canceled for the Tainim? So the Ran says there's two ways to understand this. Hey, for the Tainim, ain't a muffer for Afla Novim. It's not broken at all. It's not canceled until you break the whole thing, or at least it's partially broken. There's two ways to understand this, and we'll see the Gemara in the Bays confirming one or the other. Umrah, let's say she says konim to Eina Shani Timus, like she makes two Nadarim. You say this fig I'm not going to eat. Va'anava Shani Timus, Hareo Shnem, it's like two Nadarim. He doesn't mean to say, says the Ran, doesn't mean to say it's like two Nadarim and he has to break them each separately. I cancel this one and I cancel the second one. No, doesn't mean that. Lav L'Meimer says the Ran, 2 lines from the bottom of the page. You can make one. Let's say she had 5 Nadarim. You can say, I'm breaking all 5. You could do that. No problem with that. He's just telling you that it's 2 separate Nadarim. He could cancel one and confirm the other. He could say, well, we don't have any grapes anyway, so I'm canceling the grapes. But for the figs, we're going to leave it on there. Whatever he wants to say. That's what it means to say that if you make 2 separate Nadarim, if you said separately, I forbid myself from eating grapes, I forbid myself from eating figs, they're 2 separate Nadarim. He could break both if he wants at one time, but he could confirm one and cancel the other. That's what the Mishnah says. Money must
Isn't the first one Shita because
which one?
The Kiye, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to say anything to be the time.
But he had to have kavanah for the whole thing. You don't have to say anything because you could have kavanah in your heart. But the point is, what was the kavanah or what was what he said? The question is, it's a different chiddush over here, that if he's makayim part of it, it's makayim the whole thing. That's a chiddush. Now, it's true that he could break it in his heart or just say nothing. But if he said nothing, he's confirming the whole thing. Or if he confirmed it in his heart and not breaking his heart.
He confirms part and he says nothing about the other.
Okay, who says? Maybe, but that's not what it says. It says if he confirmed part of it, the whole thing is confirmed. The whole thing's confirmed.
It would be confirmed anyway. That's what I'm saying. He does the husband and father.
No.
Nothing.
Right.
It's kind of.
No, correct. But over here, let's say he was Makayim part of it. And he had a convention that he wanted to break the other part later on in the day. Can't do that. You can't do that. No, you can't. That's what he says. If you're Makayim part of it, you're Makayim the whole thing. Neder shehukam miktsasa hukum. That's what this Tana says. We'll see other opinions in a minute, but that's his opinion, as opposed to Hafara, where he says Hafara, that's not the case. If you only broke part of it, the rest is not broken. In fact, there's 2 ways to learn. If you only broke part of it, maybe none of it's broken. It's not broken at all. Or only that part of it's broken, but certainly the other part's not. That's what the Tana of our Mishnah says. Who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Says the Gemara. Money must eat Rabbi Shmuel. Mishnah goes like Bishmal the Tanya. Ishi commanded Bishivran, her husband shall confirm it or cancel it. Okay, that's what the Brisa says. What's the explanation? Now we're going to see these different opinions. Our Mishnah only brought us one opinion. Now we're going to see other opinions. That's exactly like the words of our Mishnah. First words of our Mishnah. She says, I forbid myself from eating figs and grapes are also like a carbon. Kayim l'ta'enim, kula kayim. Okay, that's the same part, that just like our Mishnah, right? If he confirmed for figs, the whole thing is confirmed automatically, and he can't change his mind now unless he goes and matur neder on the kama. He can't go back now and break part of it. That's what he says. If you're makayim part, the whole thing is makuyim. Hafar l'ta'enim. If he broke it for cancel it for ta'enim. It's not broken until he breaks it for the end of two. Those are exact words of our Mishnah, Shmuel. So our Mishnah goes like Shmuel, and still we don't know if he broke part of it. He broke it for figs. Is it at least broken for figs? If he confirmed it for figs, it's confirmed for the grapes. If he canceled it for the figs, it's certainly not canceled for the grapes. We don't even know if it's confirmed for the if it's canceled for the figs. That we'll see. There's 2 different ways to learn that. Okay, that's all Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva Omer, Hareyu Omer Ishi Kamena B'Shifrenu. It says the husband shall confirm it. B'Shifrenu Ma yikimenu mimenu. Again, what is yikimenu? It's like yakim mimenu, he darshans it. Even though you could just say that's a simple Hebrew, but he says yikimenu is it's as if it says, I will confirm mimenu, part of it. Mimenu, not the whole thing, part of it. So he says, Isha yikimenu, ma yikimenu, mimenu, just like confirming it. Why, when you confirm part of it, is the whole thing confirmed? Why? You could ask that, like, what's interesting in the two cases? However, you learn the case with canceling, that canceling part of it does not cancel the whole thing, but confirming part of it confirms the whole thing. Why? Because it says, ma yikimenu, if you confirm part of it, that's considered akama, part of it, afi friend, also mimenu. So Rabbi Kiva learns, listen to this, that neder, just like we learned in Beksamach Alpha, what did Rabbi Kiva say there? Neder shehuter miktsasa huter kulo, not only for hataras adarim, but even for hafaras adarim. He says, Isha hakamas neder shehukum miktsasa hukum kulo, neder shehafer miktsasa hafer kulo. Pay attention to what I just said, Moshe Smith. All right, that we discussed that before. Here we have an opinion of Rabbi Kiva that hafar neder shehufer miktsasa hafer kulo. That's Rabbi Kiva's opinion. May not answer your question about excluding certain people from the neder, right? In a case like that, but by afar, we're only talking about the wife anyway, right? We're only talking about the wife anyway. You're talking about, if she forbade herself from certain people, can you break that up? That's another question. But you see that hafaras nadarim, according to Rabbi Kiva, is also neder shehufer miksaso hutakul, according to Rabbi Kiva. So our mission is not like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel, just understand the discussion. Rabbi Shmuel miksiv yefer mimenu. It says yikimenu, you can understand as yakim mimenu, you can confirm part of it. But by Yifrenu just said break it, cancel it. Doesn't say yafer mimenu. Rabbi Kiva says, well, maki shafar lakum. There's a hekesh over here. You shayit menu shek menu. Ma'akam mimenu. Afar is also menu. Okay, so we have a machlokas so far between. We're saying our mission is Rabbi Shmuel, right? Because Rabbi Shmuel is the one who says that neder shehukum mitzasa hukum kulo, neder shehafer mitzasa is not hafer kulo. And that disagrees with Rabbi Kiva. Says in both cases, hukum mitzaso or hufa mitzaso, the whole thing is done either way, respectively. Another thing that he says now, all this that we said in the Mishnah and the Brayso Zud Rabbi Shmuel and Kiva, that's Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva's words. The other way, ma'afara masha hafer, just like by afara, only what you canceled is canceled. Afakama masha kaim kayim. There is no such thing. By a Torah maybe Rabbi Kiva said, maybe we agree a Torah but when it comes to Akama or Afara, only what you can't confirm, but what you cancel, that's it. The rest is not. If you learn the Girsa like we have, Makish Akama Afara, that's the Psak. We've got like the Chachamim, we go like the Chachamim. Ma Afara Masha Hufer, what's broken is broken, and not the rest of it. This goes like the opinion of the two opinions we said in the Mishnah of Rabbi Shmuel. What do you say in Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel said in our Mishnah, if you cancel it for figs, for the grapes it's not confirmed. Does that mean for the grapes not confirmed, but for the figs it is? Or do you say no, it's not broken at all? You could read those words as if you only broke it for the figs, it's not broken for the figs until you broke it for the grapes too. That's how you could learn, or you could learn hafalatenim, as you broke it for grapes. It's not entirely broken until you actually broke for the grapes. From the gears over here, Rabbi Shmuel said, "Chamomrim ma'afara." Just like by afara, you apparently agree that masha hafer. What's broken is broken. Meaning, Rabbi Shmuel would agree that part of it is broken, right? If you broke part of it, that part is broken. That part is canceled. Afakama masha kaim kaim. But the Ran points out others have a different girsa. He brings down from the Ramban, the Gersa Aval Chachamim Omrim, that he changes the Gersa, and he says in our Gemara, Chachamim Ma'afara Masha for Lo Hufer, Afakama Masha Kaim Lo Kaim. So he dashes it that way. So you still two ways to understand our Mishnah.
Based on the premise says the woman says two things at the same time. In other words, I'm not going to eat grapes, I'm not going to eat figs. Same thing.
One netter,
right. Two separate.
Right, which makes two separate things. And the Mishnah said at the end, then he could confirm one and cancel the other. They're two separate nadarim. He could cancel all 5 or 10 nadarim at the same time. But if there's two separate nadarim, this one and that one, then she could say, well, I'm canceling this and I'm confirming that. No problem there. But the Rabbi Shmuel holds that if it's one netter and he confirmed part of it, the whole thing is confirmed. If he broke part of it, then the other part is not broken, and we're not even sure if the first part is broken. Rabbi Kiva says, makes no difference whether you confirm part of it or you cancel part of it, the whole thing is gone. Because that's why you learn Zisha Yikimenu. If you put part of it, you're Makayim, the whole thing is Mukuyim, and you learn how far from Makama. The Chacham say, no, not at all. What you confirmed is confirmed, the other part's not confirmed. What you canceled is canceled, the other part's not canceled. On this last point about making two Nadarim, Amar Konim Ta'ena, we said at the end of the Mishnah, she said, Konim Ta'en Shani Taimas, and Nabsh makes two separate Nadarim. They're two separate things. Amar of Mastis from Shimon, she goes like Rav Shimon, the Amar At Shiomer Shvul Kolecha Dechet. What's that case? The case over there is where 5 guys are demanding money. All 5 of you. You're sitting here and say, I owe you each $100. You're each claiming I owe you $100. And I swear, I don't know any of you, right? I don't know any of you. I don't know you, and I don't know you, and I don't know you, and you. You're chayav a separate for lying. If it's a shvua, we're talking about a netter, we're talking about shvua, the same idea. I have to say, I swear to you. If I just say once, I swear to you and you and you and you and you. So there's the Chacham say over there. We don't pass like the Chacham, we pass like Rav Shimon over there. Chacham say that's a separate shvuah. Chayav, it's 5 shvuahs. But Rav Shimon says until I say I swear to you and I swear to you and I swear to you, then it's 5 separate shvuahs. Otherwise, it's not. So here too, the first part of the mission where he just said I swear from figs and grapes, that's one netter. But if I said I swear from figs and I swear from grapes, or grapes are also to me and figs are also to me, then it's a separate thing. So our Mishnah goes like Rav Shimon, you got to say specifically a netter or a shvuah on each one. And we hold like Rav Shimon. Says the Mishnah, Yodei initiation Nadarim. Now this is the complicated things. Most people, I would say, most Orthodox Jews, I would venture to say, don't know the halachas of a husband or a father breaking a neder, right? They probably don't know that you can break that. You know, if your wife, probably they're not aware of all these details that you got to break it. You could break it only if it's beina lebeina or inu nefesh, and it's got to be that day, right? Most people don't know. So a guy comes along and says, I know, my wife, the idea, I know that there's nadarim. I didn't know you could break it. Nobody told me about that. I never learned that. We didn't get that far in school.
Ignorance of the law.
Ignorance of the law. Yefer. So again, when did we start to use the words, when does the clock start ticking, right? When you heard about it. But not when he actually heard the netter. He heard the netter when they were fighting one Sunday morning over something, right? They were fighting one day and he heard the netter, but he didn't know he could break it. He found out a month later that he could break it. When he finds out, that's when the clock starts ticking, because now he knows he could break it. Otherwise, what's there to do? He didn't know that he could break it. So Yom Shama over here, so here's the Odeh initiation. I didn't know you could break it. Yefer, he could break it now when he hears about it. In other words, let's think, we're going to talk about 2 dates, the first date and the second date. The first date is the date she made the netter, and he heard the netter. The second date is a date that he found out that he could break it. So in this case, everybody agrees you could break it the second date, because the first date, he didn't even know that he could break it. So that's not considered hearing. Hearing means hearing with the ability to break it. That part's easy. So now we come to the second part of the mission. I learned a little bit in yeshiva too. I knew that you could break it. I knew that a husband could break his wife's netter, but I didn't know the detail. I didn't know this is one of those. I know there's some rule that a husband could break his wife's netter under certain circumstances, but I forgot that this is about the inu nefesh and the beina lebeina. I forgot about that. I didn't know that. I never learned that. I know you could break. I know there's nadarim, and I know you can break a wife's netter, but I didn't know this is among those. A little bit more of a detail here. So over here, this is sort of speak. He knew a little bit more. In the first case, he didn't even know he could break a netter. That's really, he didn't know, right? But in this case, he knows he could break. He knows he could break a netter. He just didn't know this is one of those. Rav Meir Rav Meir says, and I'm going to learn the Mishnah the simple way. The Ram learns 2 ways. We're going to try to explain both, but the first simple way is this. Rav Meir says now on the second date, when he finds out that this is among those nadarim that he could break, he can't break anymore. You know why? Because the first time was the time he heard the netter. He heard the netter. The first date, the first time he heard the netter, the first time, it's easier to say the first time he heard the netter, or the first day, let's say, the first day that let's go back to the first date. The first date that he heard the netter, he should have broken it then. He knows that there's nadarim. He knows the husband could break it. He wasn't sure if he should break it, so break it anyway. You're not sure, so break it. You know that there's such a thing. You're not sure if this works, so break it anyway. What do you got to lose? You have nothing to lose by breaking it. He should have broken it in. If he didn't, he can't break it now. Why? Because now it's too late. It's not Yom Shmo. It's not the day. The second date is a month later. It's not the date that he heard about it. The Chacham say he could still break it then too, because it's not considered knowledge. The Chachamim, whenever you see Rav Meir and Chachamim argue, the Chacham is Rav Yehuda. That's it. Rav Meir is usually the plukta of Rav Yehuda. So he said Chachamim is that's Rav Yehuda. Now,
It's a yada mitzvah, yada kula.
that you don't say. All right, so that's going to be our issue. That's how the Ran learns this whole Gemara, that based on what's considered a yediyah. It's really what you just said. What you said is very true. Maybe you said it in jest, but it's really true. That the question is yediyah b'mikzah shma yediyah. That's the key over here. Yediyah b'mikzah, is that considered shma yediyah? That's how the Ran's going to learn. Now, I just said the Mishnah, the second way the Ran explains it, meaning we're talking about, can you break it on the second date? Rav Meir says you cannot, and the Chum say you can. You can, okay? Because the first day is not considered. But according to Meir, you cannot break it on the second day because you should have broken it on the first day. That's one way to learn the Mishnah. The Ran learns the first way to learn the Mishnah is when the Meir says, Lo Yefer, you couldn't break it on either date. You couldn't break it the first day because that's not considered enough knowledge. You have to know something. The Ran says in the middle wide lines, not the widest lines, for klal kamar. But Rav Meir says you can't break it. You can't break it all. Lo ayom, not today, the first day. But lo achar shadir, not at the second day. Shu yachalei leifer. Hayom de lo mikra yom shamo. Shei meifer elik shu yodea shu yachalei. If he doesn't know that he can break it, that's not considered the date that he heard about it. Ul achar shadir, and the second day when they told him, yeah, you can break this letter too. Shu yachalei for nami lo yefer mishum diyadia kamaiso. That the first knowledge is something. It is considered Yom Shama. In other words, it works. You got the worst of both worlds. The first day you can't break it because since you didn't know that you could break it, it's not considered that you knew about it. It's not considered Yom Shamo. You could break it unless you knew that you could break it, unless you knew the rules. And by the second day, we say the first day is Yom Shama because you did hear about it. It is considered Yom Shama. So it could be Rav Meir saying you can't break it the first and second. And the Chum say Yefer the first time. The first day you should have broken it because you knew that there's Nadarim and you knew that your husband had a wife breaks Nadarim. You just didn't know that this is among those. But the Chum said you should have broken it then. But by the second date, everybody agrees you can't break it. So according to the second way we described, the first way in the Ran, is that when Rav Meir says, Lo Yefer, you can't break it the first date or the second date. The Chum say you could break it on the first date, but not everybody agrees you can't break it on the second date. That's the first way the Ran learns. The second way is the way I first described it, that Rav Meir says Lo Yefer on the second date, but the first date you could have broken it. The Chum say Yefer even on the second date. Now the Gemara asks, we're going to ask Akasha, that this apparently, in other words, according to the Ran, is a partial knowledge or not. You see, is a partial knowledge not. According to a Meir who says Lo Yefer, so partial knowledge, if you learn that he says Lo Yefer at all the first time or the second time, then a partial knowledge is no knowledge. But over here we're going to see, in the next case, below roast. What's below roast? The pasuk's talking there about a person who kills b'shogeg. If you kill somebody inadvertently, what's the punishment? You got to go into Golus, right? That's the punishment, right? Because you were somewhat negligible. You should have been more careful. And how's the pasuk called that? He killed it without seeing, shot the gun. I didn't realize he was behind the tree over there, whatever. You were a little bit careless. It was negligence. It was inadvertent. I didn't mean to kill him, but you didn't look. So below rows, how does that? What does that mean? Yeah, sure, right. Yeah. Sure. Pardon? Yeah, right. Yeah, that was. I think that was not showcase, in the sense that he was convicted. Oh yeah, but he's not in jail yet. No, they don't put those people in jail. Anyway, below Ra'os Pratlasuma, without seeing, that means he could see some Divra Abuda. Below Ra'os, he can't see. In other words, he shot this guy without seeing him, excluding a blind person who can't see at all. In other words, below us means he didn't look now, he couldn't see him, but he's a guy who could see. excluding a blind person who can't see at all. So a blind person never goes into Golas. That's how Rav Yehuda learns. Rav Meir Shapiro, it includes a summa. It includes a summa. Why? Because a summa also has, he can't see, but he can feel, right? He has some knowledge over here. So the Gemara, the way the Ran learns, is asking a kasha over here like this, based on Svar. It's not really based on Psukim. The Ran explains that it's based on Psukim. I mean, two different cases. What are you mixing apples and oranges? That's shogeg here. We're talking about in the Nadarim. But in the Havmina, the question was based on Svaras. Now, the first way we learn, which is the second way in the Ran, Rabbi Yehuda is fine. Why? Because what did Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah, he could break it the first time, meaning because partial knowledge is considered knowledge, right? Partial knowledge is considered knowledge. And the Ran explains to the Rabbi Yehuda Kasha, why? I don't know about the Hocha, mixes idea. It's not a kol yediyah. Meaning, when the Ran says that Ran said the first way we explained it, the second way in the Ran, Rav Meir says you can't break it the first time, you can't break it the second time because you should have broken it the first time. And the Chum say you could break it the second time because the first time when you first heard about it and you didn't know you could break that netter, you knew you could break them, you didn't know you could break that netter, that's not considered knowledge. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda says the same thing over here, meaning you didn't know the first time you could break it, that's not considered knowledge. The second time when you were told that you can break this kind of a netter, that this is the kind of netter you can break, he broke it, fine. Mixes the first at the beginning, when he first heard the netter, he didn't know that he could break it. He knows he could break Nadarim, he knows there are Nadarim, but he didn't know this was among the Nadarim that he could break. Mixes is not considered Kol Yediyah. And the same thing over here. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? The blind person who has a little bit of knowledge, he can feel, blind people also have some feeling as to what the person was there, but a little bit of knowledge is not knowledge. It's not good enough, and therefore he's patur from Golas. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a kasha, but according to Meir, it is. Why? Because Rav Meir agrees in the first case, when he says, I know there's Nadarim, but I didn't know that you can break Nadarim. And therefore, what's the rule? Yefer, now he can break it. In other words, a little bit of knowledge he had, mixes yediyah he had, mixes yediyah, now he can break. Mixes yediyah is not yediyah, but over here he says, l'rabas asasuma, even though the blind person only has a mixes yediyah, only has a partial yediyah, it's included, he's included. So is mixes yediyah ki yediyah or not? It seems to be a steer in Rav Meir, because Rav Meir says in the first case, and I know there's a dawn, but I didn't know that you can break it. That's only a mixes yediyah. Mixes yediyah is not ki yediyah. Therefore, he had no responsibility to start. The clock didn't start from the first time he heard the netter, and that's why he could break it now. The second time, when he found out that he can break the nadarim, he didn't know he could break it. Now he found he could break the nadarim. He could break it because the first time it mixes yediyah is not a yediyah. But by the blind person, he says that mixes yediyah is yediyah, includes the summa. So there seems a steer in Rav Meir. That's how the Ran explains the question. Now, the way to explain the question in the first way is that the first way the Ran learns that Rav Meir holds it's not good. The first he can't break it the first time or the second time, and the Chum say you can't break it the second time. The Chum say you could break it the first time, but not the second time. Then the kash is really on both. You have to see the Ran inside to understand that the kash is really on both on Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. But at least it's a kasha the way we explained it now. The simple way to explain that Rav Meir, when he says lo yefer, is talking about the second time you can't break it, but because you should have broken it the first time. But from the Breisha of the Mishnah, it's mashma that mixes yediyah is not kidiyah. And over here by Summa, by the blind person who killed inadvertently, it's mashma mixes yediyah is kidiyah. Says the Gemara, Amarav no. Hacham minyanakra, v'acham minyanakra. The Ran has different gears here too. That it's not based on a minyan dekra, but he has a girsa that the girsa could be because Ulaman the Gars Lamikar is that in other words that there are some who say the lesser be ikar nische. The Mikar don't have the Ulaman the Gars Lamikar Parchin and Nigmar Mina. You get a little slightly different girsa, but the point is you have to look at the context. Amar Rav Yehuda Savar. Rav Yehuda, it's Gaber Ritzech. It says Vasher Yavo Reo Biyar. Whoever comes into the forest with his friend, he approached his friend in a forest, called the Bar Me'eliyar. Who can come into a forest? Who can come into a forest? Man's not crippled, he can't walk. It's not like he can't walk, can't go into the forest. It's not like he's bedridden. He's blind, but a blind person could also go into the forest. Sumanami Bar Me'eliyar. Sum is also capable of going into the forest. And a summa, therefore, is included in the general idea. Asher yavo esrei bayar. V'yam below ra'os l'rabos is a summa. If you want to tell me below ra'os means to include a summa, that he can't see, that below ra'os means even a blind person can come in here. So miyar nafka, we already know that. If you want to include a blind person in the rules of a person who kills b'shogi that has to go into galus, you see that from the yar. Whoever can go into the yar. Blind person can also go in the yar. Elishmamina below ra'os prat l'summa. Below ra'os means excludes a summa, because below ra'os means this guy didn't see now, but normally he could see. He just didn't look carefully. A blind person can't see it all. So Rabbi Yehuda understands the pasuk. Asher yavo esrei bayar includes a summa. Why does it say below ra'os without looking to tell me that this guy didn't look? But he could have looked. Somebody else, a blind person, can't look at all, and therefore it's excluded from the parsha. Rav Meir Shapiro, no. It says ksiv bli das, without knowledge. Kol the bar meida. Anybody who has knowledge, summa la bar meida, who can't know. Anybody who could have known, bli das, he didn't look carefully. It was inadvertent because he wasn't careful. He wasn't concentrating. The summa is not part kasim. Summa can't see the blind. The blind person can't see if somebody else is there. Below ra'os, if you want to say below ra'os is excluding a summa, you want to learn like Rabbi Yehuda. Below ra'os means he couldn't see now, but he could see somewhere else, excluding a blind person who can't see at all. So mebli das nafka, we already know without knowledge. In other words, both words below ra'os and mebli das seem to exclude a summa. Mebli das means this guy killed him without knowledge, right? Mebli das, he killed him without seeing him. He couldn't see him. Okay. So Blidas excludes the summa, and below ra'os also excludes the summa. He didn't look now, but he could have looked. Is excluding a blind person who can't look at all. So we have two exclusions. Elishmamina below ra'os l'rabos summa. And the Ran explains that what do we mean over here? It means it's einiyat alamiyat al-charabos. Look at the Ran down in the middle wide lines, not the widest lines, right before Masis, right before the Mishnah. Summa Ramedo, Shem Yachaleda. He can't know. Well, he doesn't know where the other guy is. He might hear a guy. He might hear the guy in the forest rustling the leaves or something. He might hear somebody, but he can't know exactly where he is. If you say below excluding a summa, below ra'os prat the summa, blidas not yet. We already know from blidas. Both blidas and below excludes a summa. Therefore, it's a double negative. It's an exclusion after exclusion. Includes some. So what he's saying over here is that it's not based on a svara, that a knowledge. In the case of Neder, you could say, is it a knowledge or not? From the ratio, it seems to say that a partial knowledge is not knowledge, according to Rav Meir, because he says in the first case, I know there's Nadarim, but I didn't know that you could break it. So now you can break it when he hears about that you can break the Nadarim, because the first partial knowledge is not a knowledge. Over here, though, it seems that a partial knowledge is a knowledge. No, it's simply a pasuk. There's two exclusions for a blind guy, both blidas and below ra'os. Well, two exclusions equal an inclusion. It's based on the psukim, and therefore it's mirach l'rabos, and therefore a blind person is included in the rules. If a blind person shoots somebody in the forest by mistake, he does have to go into galus. And that's how we'll learn. You'll see the Ran inside if you have time to understand how the first way the Ran learns that Rav Meir holds you can't break it at the beginning or later on. The Chum say you could break it only at the beginning, not later on. It's a kasha from the case of the Summa. It's a kasha on both ends of it. But the answer is the same at the end of the day, that the two things are different. Over here, maybe in our case, we're arguing about what is partial knowledge. Is it knowledge? Or when it comes to Rotzeach, it's simply based on the psukim. And that's why he says, Hachim Yanukach Minukah. He doesn't explain that Hachim Yanukah over here. He only explains the Rotzeach because Rotzeach is simply based on psukim. All right, we'll pick tomorrow's daf is this daf Peiches, and on Sunday, Mirz Hashem, that's on the tomorrow's daf is on the podcast, and on Sunday we'll start with the Mishnah on Peiches. Have a good Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. And what I say?
Peiches on the bottom.
Yeah, Peiches on the bottom. In the podcast, we actually learn the Mishnah on Peiches on Beis and goes on to Peiches on Al, but we'll repeat it on Sunday. It's a shame.